welcome to Writers Blockbusters, the show where we treat the final edit of the movie like the script. I'm one of your hosts, Bob Rose, at Thundergrunt Bob on Instagram, and right now, Jamie's going to introduce himself.
Hey, I'm Jamie Nash. I am a screenwriter and the writer of Save the Cat Writes Horror, Save the Cat Writes for TV. Last Night at Terrace Lanes. I'm going to list everything I've ever written. Altered. No. And you can find me at jamienash.net.
Jimmy?
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and script consultant, and you can find me at scriptbutcher.com.
Awesome. And today we are going to talk about Predator Badlands, not Bloodlands. Jamie wrote Bloodlands in our document. But before we get into our discussion topic,
Bloodlands.
Bloodlands.
Mad Max Bloodlands.
Before we get into our topic, we're going to go around and just say our thoughts, anything we want to say about the movie from our personal perspective. Let's start with Jimmy.
I just saw this movie for the first time. I just finished an hour ago, and I scrambled together some talking points, and I think I got some good ones, but I can't remember what season it was on the show. We did Predator. Was it season 1, season 2? It was 2018.
We did it in 1984.
Before it came out.
It was a mixtape. It was a mixtape.
I don't endorse logging stuff by seasons on podcasts. That's just my personal belief, but that's Jimmy. So I don't know. Season doesn't make sense to me.
I started doing that to list it on IMDb.
Oh, okay.
You have to do it. You have to do it that way.
Oh, okay. So is it by year?
Yeah, by year. So
okay.
when the year that you start is a season. So that's why I've been speaking about it this way. That's funny that I speak at IMDb, Bob.
You know what? IMDb is wrong in my opinion. So there you
go. But anyway, one of our earlier episodes, if you check it out, was the Predator episode, and I feel like some of our standard topics sort of were born in that episode, like premise pretzels and not so secret weapons and stuff like that. And it was fun to think about how this movie subverts the Predator recipe, which we don't have on our list, but that was kind of the most fun for me. Not the member berry aspect of it, but watching how it uses the recipe and then changes it up and subverts it. So yeah, I love the movie. I'm really behind on the franchise. I did not see Prey. And I did not see the Fred Dekker, Shane Black Predator.
did you see the animated movie?
I did not. So I'm way behind on the franchise.
Did you see To Catch a Predator?
I did.
Chris Hansen?
Yeah. I did catch that.
Okay.
That's the darkest entry.
That.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. So anyway, I love the movie, and I'm a little underprepared compared to the usual episodes. You won't be getting book reports from me, but yeah, I love it.
You got stuff going on. It's okay.
Yeah, I got a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, you do know the guy that made 2 Predator movies.
I do know that. Yes.
Okay, this is his third Predator. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So he's been entrenched in that world.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Jamie.
Yeah. So I just watched this week. I did not. It really wasn't on my radar. I was going to watch it eventually, but I wasn't in a rush to watch it. I know it came out and all the other stuff, and I'll tell you why. I never watched it. Number one, and I probably said this in our Predator episode, Predator and Alien are 2 franchises that, for me personally, this is pure just taste thing. I was kind of good after 2. I was like, yeah, I've seen it all. I'm good after 2. I saw 2 of them. I got to Aliens. And by the way, I've seen every Alien movie, TV show since, I think. I've seen them all. I've even seen Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator 2. So I've seen them all. But I was kind of good emotionally, creatively, whatever. If you love it, fine. But for me, I was kind of good after a couple. But this one in particular, so I watched Prey. I didn't watch the animated one. What was that called that came out?
Killer or Killers.
Bloodlands? Okay.
No, Killer or Killers.
I'm just kidding. I'm trying to sell the Bloodlands.
And also, just so you know, Killer of Killers is kind of like an anthology movie of different Predator stories. So
Okay. And
it's not like a
and
straightforward.
so part of the reason I didn't watch this or that is because the titles, like Predator Badlands or Bloodlands or Killer of Killers,
God,
it it didn't tell me anything, and I never saw the trailers. And honestly, I wasn't sure if this one was the animated one or they were both animated. I
Wow,
kind of
some
felt
brand confusion.
it was a brand confusion with me because they both came out around the same time, and for whatever reason, I'm not as into animated action these days. I like an animated adult comedy. I like animated kids movies sometimes if they're the right thing. But sometimes the adult action one, I've watched some in recent years, but not a ton. So I kind of checked out a little bit on this, and wasn't really. I kind of saw people talking about it. I saw Rotten Tomatoes reviews, but I had checked out on it. But that said, after watching this, if they had done this with Predator 3, I probably would be watching Predator movies all along with enthusiasm, because it's kind of like how Predator 2, like, and I know some people hate Predator 2, some people think it's the best one. I'm kind of closer to the best one camp. I like the first one the best. But there's just something different about it. It felt more like a comic book. It felt like it was breaking some rules. It didn't have like the formula of Predator and things like that. And this movie completely does that. So I really like this movie. I'm really pro. Like Prey, I watched Prey and I was like, it's fine. It's kind of like the first Predator, but in a different setting. And it was kind of, to me, it was very well executed, well directed, well performed. But to me, it was a little bit samey same in some ways, just with a different culture. But with this movie, it's a different story altogether. Um, and I dug it. I really, I wish, and I hope this means this is the springboard for future Predator movies. But I don't know if it made quite enough money to justify it or not. It's a hit, but it's not like a overwhelming hit. I don't know. Has anybody heard like what the plan is for the future?
I know that Dan Trachtenberg said he wants to make movies that aren't starring the Predator. At some point, he'd like to do that, but I don't know if he's moving away or they're trying to keep going. I don't know.
And I almost feel like, and the same thing goes for how I feel about Predators, Alien, and the same thing for this movie goes for Predator and Alien. I like this version of Alien sequels. The TV show I liked for similar reasons, but the TV show lost me a little bit. That came out this year. But yeah, this one I think this one is I don't know. Like I like what it did to Alien, and I like what it did to Predator, and I was a big fan. I also like. I mean, how many like kind of goofy sci-fi space operas do we get anymore? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, with basically like that work. Like sometimes you get them, and they're starring Vin Diesel, and they're I don't know something.
We reference Pitch Black 2 a lot in this show.
I'm gonna like
Chronicles of Riddick rules. I don't want to hear negative words.
Yeah, Riddick.
I love it.
Love it. Love it.
So, but this is kind of like old-fashioned, big rubber-faced characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it almost feels as much like Star Wars or Star Trek, even like cheesy Star Trek, and but in a good way. It feels like the kind of stuff James Cameron loved before he kind of became James Cameron. You know, it reminds me of that kind of stuff. And I guess James Cameron still is doing that with Avatar. He's just doing it in a much different way with huge budgets. So I don't know. I'm all about this movie. I think it's really cool.
Cool. Well, Jamie pretty much said everything. I'm just kidding. I'm the one who suggested this movie. I feel like I almost felt like to a point where I was like reminding you guys it existed.
That exists.
I was like, one of my favorite movies of the entire year, and I was just like, "There's this."
Awesome.
Like, yeah. You know, when it comes to, I would say this for both franchises, Aliens and Predator. I like everything, even the shitty stuff. And I've watched all of them multiple times. I'm a huge fan of Predator, every one of them, even the really bad one, which is 4 in my opinion. So like I was kind of sold on what Trachtenberg was doing from the beginning. I agree with Jamie. Prey is essentially his version of the first movie. but it's really good. I think it's really good. It has a different atmosphere and everything. But with Killer or Killers, totally different. Like I said, it's an anthology movie. And then there's this, which is almost like, if I assume as a creative, he like asked himself, what do you do now? I can't keep remaking the first movie. I
Yeah.
can't do what I just did. This is the answer, and it has, surprisingly enough, it does have its criticisms. There's a lot of people that don't like this movie.
It's a big
because
swing.
they view it as the Marvelization or something of
Right.
but the reason I don't view that is because I'm an old man and I remember reading the comics as a kid.
Sure. Yeah.
And to me, this is maybe one of the best realizations of that era that I've seen on the big screen with an actual budget.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is like literally in the 90s sitting in my room reading Predator bubbles of them talking to each other on their own planet. I was like, they did it. They actually brought it to the big screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this movie does rule. And it actually, I've seen it, I think, the most out of all of us. It gets better with each viewing. I appreciate new things, every little nuance. And what I appreciate so much about it is it's incredibly simple.
Yes.
Like I say that I don't want to say that in any negative connotation. It is just beautifully meat and potatoes right down the line. And because of that, it works, And
that's all it needs to be.
It's everything. Yeah, right. It's not more than it needs to be or less. It's just like perfectly balanced for this idea at this moment. How do you make a movie starring a predator that doesn't speak English? It's how you do it.
It's interesting too, because when I was watching it, I was kind of marveling over how simple it was. I was like, that's one of its almost what's cool about it, is how simple it was. But then I was also thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, could a spec screenwriter write this without the predator infused world, or would we just get bored? And I think we'd kind of get bored. Those are my debate I had. I was loving it and saying, wow, it's so simple. It's just a quest to kill a monster and a road trip and this and that. But without the world, that the pre-existing world, I was kind of having this philosophical debate in my head. Like, if I wrote this and none of this existed, would it kind of bore people? Would they kind of check out? Like, oh, there's this weird alien and this and that, and But with all the history we have and the fact they used those worlds to do what they did, I think that's what really made it cool.
In the execution of it, I'm not trying to shit on anything else, but in the execution of it, none of it feels like cheap or lame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to crap on Romulus, but the way that like the quote from Aliens is used in Romulus is so not okay. You know what I mean? And like nothing here feels like that felt. You know what I mean? Like, it's like she just Weyland-Yutani's in the movie. It's not called attention to. It's like a passive integration of the IP. You know what I mean? It's just like she's a Weyland-Yutani robot. Weyland-Yutani's all over the things. That's all we're doing. It's not a big deal. That's all we're doing. It just is, and the execution just feels so smooth. And you're not like, I don't want to use the word cringe. I'm too old, but they're kind of like it could have been like, like, no, don't.
Take you self-aware.
It could have been painfully self-aware, and it didn't do that.
I mean, and again, not to pour too much praise on it, but I will. It's kind of what I always dreamed like the big swings with sequels would be. It's like Aliens was different than Alien, even though when we analyzed it, we realized Aliens really followed beat for beat closer than I thought. It just did it like on a different level, but it just widens the world. It almost turns it into a different genre. It does, and it's something like Aliens did. Honestly, a little bit Predator 2. I haven't seen Predator 2 in a while, so
I just watched it. Still,
I don't mean to say it's like the greatest movie of all time, but it's like
no, it is.
I like.
No, just kidding.
Yeah. But it did kind of the same thing. It took a big swing for a sequel. It didn't just like say it could have done what Prey did, for
It
example.
did what like horror sequels did back in the day. It just changed the environment. Like, what if Jason was in Manhattan? It's like, what if the Predator was in a city?
Right.
I love that movie dearly, but Jamie's right. People hate it.
Yeah, there are people that hate it. There are a lot of people though. It's kind of like when we talk about like Temple of Doom, where certain people that's their favorite, Bob, and certain people hate it.
I think it's one of the first movies me and
Jimmy doesn't hate it. Jimmy does.
I feel like it's one of the first movies me and Jamie ever like discussed is Temple of Doom.
Yeah. But anyway, and even Empire Strikes Back, as a sequel. It didn't just rehash the beats. It wasn't like, oh, okay, there's this Death Star thing. We're going to blow it. Return of the Jedi did that to an extent. But Force Awakens and stuff started to kind of do that. But Empire Strikes Back was like, no, we're going to tell these different types of stories now. We did that one. Now we're going to kind of expand it and stretch out. That's what I
always point to Bogus Journey doing something different.
Yeah. Bogus Journey was
completely different.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on that note, how much did this movie make, Jamie? You kind of mentioned if it didn't hit as big as we might have hoped.
Yeah, and it hit big. It's not to say this is anywhere near a flop, but in this day and age, it made 184 million worldwide, and that's off a $103 million budget. So it's kind of like in that weird territory,
You would have hoped it went past 2 at least.
Not a flop, but not a. You imagine like they had to pay back all the marketing and.
I almost think the 1-2 punch of its reviews. It got great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It's high. I don't know what it stands at now, but it's like high 80s or something like that. But I think it was 90s there for a little while. Between that and then showing up on Disney and Hulu now, maybe because it's almost to me like, oh, this is the new direction we can take this franchise. We can print money if we can hit. And maybe it works in that way. Maybe it's enough after people watch it in Hulu and Disney and see how good it is and how it world builds and how it expands in a way that maybe, and again, I'm not crapping on Prey at all, but Prey didn't really do that. This movie, in my opinion, does do that. It's like we can go in a million directions,
Unlike Alien
movies.
I feel like unlike Alien, this franchise is sort of for the mass public is sort of like, oh, it was good. Like they're not expecting Predator movies to be good, and when they are, it's like a surprise that it was good. Whereas Alien has this like prestigious like kind of quality to it, where even when it doesn't work, everyone's like assumes it's going to be awesome. But Predator's like, I don't know, people are like on their guard with a Predator franchise for some reason.
Yeah.
Oh wow, you liked that? Oh, maybe I'll watch it. That's kind of the the vibe of that. To be fair, though, Dan Trachtenberg, I mean, like, in my opinion, he's hit it out of the park 3 times. But those first 2 times are both on streaming. And I wonder if you had called Prey, like call it Predator/Prey or something like that, that didn't go, like, as far as normal people are concerned, that doesn't go towards, like, the popularity of the franchise because it doesn't have it in the title.
So
as we learn with Dr. Sleep, you got to put it in the title.
That's the other thing that reason I probably haven't seen this movie yet. The whole streaming thing kind of conditioned me like, oh, these are streaming movies. These aren't. So I really had like no awareness of this movie. It was just like, oh, it's a streaming movie. I'll watch it one day.
On the big screen, this was awesome. I love
that, man.
This is exactly the kind of stuff I wanted. I wish I could have saw it a few more times on the big screen. So it was totally worth the ticket.
It's one of the best movies, like, because I'm a sucker for these kind of movies. I mean, these are the kind I love. It's one of the best things I've seen in a couple of years. It's right up there. And I didn't even really, I wasn't even going to watch it, except we were doing it on the podcast. So I don't know what that says. That probably says more about me than it says about marketing, but still.
Hey, I'm just happy I recommended something you loved, Jamie.
Oh, man.
Cool.
Finally.
We got it, Bob.
Yeah, we did it.
We've been waiting for this moment.
Yeah, right. Jamie didn't just go, yeah, it was fine.
It's kind of like how I felt about, in some ways, Godzilla -1, though I knew I was
Oh,
going to
right.
see
Yeah.
that and like it, but it took me a little while to see it. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah,
It's hard not to love that.
yeah.
All right. Well, with that, who wrote this shit?
Yeah, so the screenplay is by, we think how to pronounce his name. You can call in and complain. Is Patrick Aison, maybe? It's Aison. AI, maybe it's
Yeah, he's
AI.
AI. They're
Maybe he's a
just
robot, and
they're
that's
sliding it in there.
this is a little wink, like,
Yeah.
we're gonna trick you. It's an AI screenplay. No,
I think it
he's
could
not.
be Aison.
Aison, yeah,
Aison.
it could be. And he wrote Prey as well. This has a story by him and Dan Trachtenberg. And then, interestingly enough, I saw that there are additional credits. They're not on IMDb, but there are additional credits, literary material not on screen, with Brian Duffield, Brian Fuller, Patrick Somerville, and Ben Schwartz. So pretty big list. Now, here's the weird thing about the additional literary material. That's a new credit that showed up a couple years ago. It hasn't been like widely used, but it shows up on some movies nowadays. They used to not tell you like who did previous drafts or who lost arbitration and stuff like that. And now they have a credit for it. They'll actually put it on there. This credit doesn't affect residuals. Like those people won't see any residuals. Only the people that get actual screenplay and story by credit get residuals. So it's kind of a new thing. Yep.
Very cool.
So it's kind of cool because it used to be like these things would come out, and then maybe 5 years later, Brian Duffield would say, "Yeah, well, when I did a draft of Predator Badlands," and he kind of sneak it out there, just to let you know. Like there are a lot of people that worked like on Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and stuff that just kind of sneak it out there, like, "Oh yeah, when I did my draft, they didn't have the train yet, and I put that in," or they'll say something like that. And you'll find out.
I mean, I'd do it. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
So why not?
Sneak that in there.
For sure.
Also, just prove me wrong. You can't prove
Yeah.
Sure. And I noticed too, Jamie, like it was his credits were mostly TV before the Aison is mostly television.
Yes, yeah. And to talk about Trachtenberg, he's somebody in my short film class I like to talk about because he kind of broke out with a short film.
Yep.
He broke out with
Portal, right?
Portal, yeah. He did the Portal kind of. It's a quick little like 2-minute, 3-minute short. I think it might be 5. And it's just like a chase scene of somebody escaping fan fiction kind of video game thing, and it's really cool. And it went viral, and he kind of, I think, was lurking around when that went viral. It wasn't like that shot him to stardom like the guy who did Lights Out. Sandberg, is that the guy's name?
Yeah, or Fede Alvarez who did the Alien movie. Because
Don't Panic or what is it? Panic Panic.
Panic something. It's about the robot attacking the city.
Yeah. Those were kind of like I think Trachtenberg was kind of floating around before those things a little bit, but that kind of even propelled him further. And then Trachtenberg was interesting because he was kind of attached to a lot of different things for a while, which happens with young directors. They see their cool short. They're like, "Oh, you did that Portal short. We're going to put you on this, this, and this." But then those movies are really hard to greenlight. So it takes like a little bit of extra luck to get their first project sometimes greenlit. So anyway, we're talking about the writer here, Patrick Aison, if that's the name. That's the name we're going with.
I'm going with Aison.
You're going with Aison?
Aison.
Okay. So his credits are, the first credit he has is Wayward Pines in 2015. He has one episode credited, so probably in the writer's room of these shows. Usually the way it works is if you're in the writer's room, you get one episode per season with a credit, unless you're like really high level. Like if you're Vince Gilligan, you might get 2 or 3 or something. Kingdom, he did in 2016. Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan in 2018. Wow, I didn't know that show was that old. That's the other thing. I feel
Yeah,
like that
wow.
show just showed up like 4 years ago. And it's almost well, not quite 10 years old.
Well, in 2 years it'll be a decade old. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Treadstone, time keeps on ticking into the future. Treadstone 2019, Prey 2022. It was his first movie, from what I can see. Then he did Last Light, which is a TV miniseries in 2022. He did 4 episodes, so maybe he was like the main writer or showrunner of that or something.
His baby.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Last Light. I don't know
what that is.
And then Predator Badlands. Now I'm going to click on it. So anyway, that's
kind of been working with Dan Trachtenberg.
So dude's been churning out stuff left and right for a good decade almost.
Yeah, Last Light. It's got Matthew Fox from Lost, and it's a Peacock series, and it came out in 2022.
God.
Yeah.
How did these? I mean, there's too many things.
If we've learned anything on this show between the three of us, there's so much media that like one of us hasn't heard about the thing the other one has absolutely heard about. You know,
I can't remember what movie it was that Jamie had never even heard of until we brought it up to
Electric
him.
State.
Electric State.
Yeah, Jamie didn't even know it existed until I mentioned it.
What movie are you talking about?
The one directed by the guys that made Avengers.
$200 million budget movie.
300.
$300 million budget.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? I feel like if I tell people that watch a lot of movies and watch Marvel movies about that, like I'll give you an example. My nephew, he watches all the Marvel movies. He watches all the DC movies. I don't think he even knows what Electric State is.
Yeah, see?
I bet you, I bet large dollars that if I said, hey, have you seen Electric State? He's like, I don't know what that is. Which is weird, right? That's just weird.
It's pretty weird.
This show actually looks kind of interesting. It like takes place after a sudden oil crisis. It's kind of like a global thing. I might have to check this out.
Last Light, so power.
Last Light.
Okay. For all you ASIN heads.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's ASIN. ASIN heads.
ASIN Hive.
Yes.
Unite. Okay. Let's talk about this being a golden fleece. Whose was this?
I hope it was Jimmy's. No, it was mine.
You're like, what? Jamie's putting talking points on for me.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I put that on for Jimmy to talk about Jimmy. Jimmy, what do you think? So golden fleece. We talk. Here comes the boring part. We talked about the Save the Cat genres. This is the Save the Cat genre. Now, this next segment is sponsored by Save the Cat genres. Save the Cat genres are something Blake Snyder put in his first Save the Cat book. They were kind of story patterns. They're not genres like comedy, horror, and things like that. Instead, they're more like his genres were patterns of storytelling. So examples are, my book is Save the Cat Writes Horror, is based around monster in the house genre, which is basically stories where there's some kind of monster. There's someone trapped in some kind of location, i.e. the house, and some sin brings about the monster. He kind of shows these patterns of things like that. He has things like buddy love, which tend to be romance or buddy cop or father-daughter stories or mother-daughter stories or whatever. Boy and his dog stories. E.T. Could almost be a buddy love. So that's another type. And then there's one called the Golden Fleece. And so somebody asked me on a podcast the other day, like, what are the most common genres of all of them? And there's 10 of them. And there's ones that you don't see as much anymore, like Out of the Bottle. You don't see that. That's like Freaky Friday or Bruce Almighty or something.
Nutty Professor.
Nutty Professor. You don't see those too much anymore.
Mask?
Mask would be good. Yep.
At first, I thought you were talking about the other Mask, though.
No. The Mask. Like, Jim Carrey.
I was like, really?
Not Eric Stoltz.
It's a weird
not Eric Stoltz.
So Mask might also be a superhero, which is another genre.
That's true. Yeah.
Some of
Hybrid,
some
Jamie.
yeah, so well, a lot of the superhero ones feel like Spider-Man feels like out of the bottle. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Spider-Man or out of the bottle. But I think the two most popular, not necessarily on this show, or the most popular one on this show is Monster in the House. But I think the two most popular in general are probably Dude with a Problem and Golden Fleece, which I think this one fits in the Golden Fleece category. So the Golden Fleece typically has a couple things. It has a trophy or a prize that they're seeking. They're traveling, and this is kill the monster. It's a slay the dragon kind of storyline.
Yeah.
And slay the dragon storylines are typically Golden Fleeces. If that's the primary, like a movie like Dragon Slayer would probably be Golden Fleece. I'd have to watch it to really say whether that's true or not. It usually has a road of some sort. There's usually some kind of geography or time or season they have to span. As we've talked about, sports movies, though, they have a different kind of road, like their season is the road or something like that. Yeah. But this movie has a true road. And we just did Wizard of Oz not too long ago. What was it 2 podcasts ago or something? And it fits these as well. We're off to see the wizard. We have to follow the yellow brick road. And the prize is getting home, but it's kind of like finding the wizard gets them home. And usually there's a team. Usually there's a 2 or 3 person, sometimes 4, like in the Wizard of Oz. Usually there's some team that comes together, oftentimes, sometimes in the beginning, but oftentimes found on the road. And this one, of course, hits all of those things. There's a kind of journey to hunt the Kalisk, and there's 2 team members that show up along the way. Thea and Bud. Is that? Yeah, it was Bud.
Yeah, you're right.
And eventually they're off to kill the monster. So they have
to kill the monster.
Yeah, they traverse. Another thing, there are subgenres that Blake Snyder talks about as well, and I'll just go over those, and we can kind of. This one's pretty obvious, I think. There's sports fleece. It's that one. This is a sports fleece. No. So sports fleeces will be anything like Major League, Bad News Bears, something like that. There's a caper fleece. So your heist movies are often caper fleece. There's a solo fleece, which kind of is an individual that goes on some kind of journey or path or something like that. And they really don't gather the team as much. And then there's 2 last ones. I think this one fits in some ways both of these. There's an epic fleece, which usually has life or death stakes in the things, physical battles, movement through hostile territory, high scale combat. Those are the kind of things an epic fleece has.
Slam dunk.
Yep. And then buddy fleece is the other one, and it usually becomes a buddies on a quest structure. And I think this one kind of has a buddy fleece kind of thing as well. So I think this one is an excellent version of Golden Fleece. I think what we'll discover in it is there are some difficulties doing a Golden Fleece as well. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up today. Hold on one second. Yeah. So Jimmy, I know you wanted to talk about like when they transition from the ordinary world to the upside down world.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to ask Bob, because you watched some of this making of stuff with Dan Trachtenberg.
I just watched interviews, but not making.
Yeah. So sorry. So one thing I love about the technique of these save the cat genres as opposed to our typical genres is it's a cool way to explore your idea and find some freshness in it, right? So they had to have conversations about like, well, what hasn't been done with the Predator universe, right? Like what kind of story can we tell that hasn't been told? And I imagine there was conversations about like, well, what if we did some sort of road trip story? Like, what does a road trip story look like with Predator paint, right? And
Right.
that gets you kind of started having the conversations. Well, what if it was like this movie? What's cool about these? And this, I think, Jamie, is it in more explored? And I think Save the Cat Goes to the Movies has like a chapter with like 20 different examples and breakdowns of each of the movies in the genre and the subgenres. I'm pretty sure, right? It's like Save the Cat Goes to the Movies.
Yeah, when you say it doesn't really have breakdowns, it has more like lists.
Okay.
But it breaks down Golden Fleece movies.
Yes,
but
that's what I mean. Yeah.
So it doesn't go into subgenres.
So if you're out there and you're like, well, like what can I learn from this? What you can learn is like, if you can identify these patterns, then you can kind of take your premise and you can like do the Golden Fleece approach and see if that works, and study how other Golden Fleece stories that are playing with the same things that you're playing with do it.
Yeah, I found it great for research. So the way I used to use it, I don't do this as much anymore just for time reasons, but the way I used to use it is I would figure out what genre I was doing, and then I'd try to find movies that did the same thing. Now here's a trick I used to do. I used to try to find movies that weren't in the same real genre. So let's say I was doing sci-fi.
The video store genre.
Right. I'd rather do the comedy. Like I'd say, well, what's the comedy? I'm going to watch that one and see what they're doing. I wouldn't want to watch, like if I was doing Star Wars, I wouldn't even really want to watch Lord of the Rings. I would be like, oh, that's too close.
Right.
But I would, if there was something like Little Miss Sunshine, I might watch that. And I might be like, if I was doing Star Wars, and I'd be like, what can I borrow from their plotting?
Yep.
Or their, some of the way their techniques that I can borrow in my sci-fi thing of similar nature. And I try to watch like 10 or 12 things in different genres. And that's how I used to use the research.
Well, and to your point, like, I think that's what's inspiring about you pointing this out, because it never crossed my mind at first watch, but as soon as I saw this talking about, I was like, oh, this is a perfect Golden Fleece example.
Yeah.
Like they had to be
even
like,
I knew that, Jamie. Like,
I was awesome. Like, oh, they were like, well, what is a Predator? What is a Predator story where there's a team and there's a road and there's a prize? What's the prize for the Predator? Okay, obviously killing a monster.
I mean, in a weird way, it's the same as what its prize is in every Predator movie, which is a trophy.
But
he's always looking for a trophy.
Well, and the difference is the hero's different, right?
Yeah, so change the perspective, right?
So the trophy's always there.
So the weird thing is, like, Predator is monster in the house because it's from the person trapped with the person that's hunting.
Right. It's the prey's perspective.
Trapped in the jungle, trapped in the forest, trapped in the city.
And that's the kind of going back to the reason I like this one so much and the things I said. That's why I like about it so much is it's not a monster in the house, which Prey was. Mm-hmm. This one's a Golden Fleece. So that's the magic they did. That's that's the weird thing. Yeah. They said we can tell any story we want. So the engine is different. That's what I like. That's
this
what
is the engine.
Excited.
Yeah. So I just thought it was cool that, like, you pointing this out, this kind of informs everything we're going to talk about after, and like why it feels so fresh. They found that pattern that hadn't been done before. So I love it.
Just in reference to what you were saying earlier to me, I feel like I only listened to a few interviews, but it seems like that whenever anyone asks him, like, how did this come to be, his whole thing was them asking themselves, how do we do this, and if you change this, how do you make that interesting? If we're going to make the switch, like, I feel like the way he was talking, the first decision was the monster's the main character, the bad guy's the main character.
Bam.
Okay, now how do we make that work? And that seems like that would be the Jenga tower falling on this, right? Like that's where you land on a Golden Fleece. That's how you land on. And I don't know if they're using that terminology, but
again, probably not. But what's exciting? What's exciting about this to me is it works with Predator. Would it work as well with Michael Myers or Jason?
No,
probably not.
No,
probably not.
Well, they have number one, they have lore, and Predator is a culture. It's not a singular being.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas Michael Myers is one.
But also,
dude,
it's not a human where you can get away with that. Like,
right.
It's a comfortably fictional.
You got the sci-fi thing.
I mean, it's an interesting it's an interesting idea to try to think about. Like, could you make a Michael Myers movie where he's the good guy? You probably have to,
Anything can
you
work
know,
if you write it good enough,
in
right?
some ways,
So,
Freddy versus Jason had to
It
dabble
had
in
to
that
play with
realm a
that.
little bit.
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
yep.
The and you know, Star Wars nerds that we are, when Star Wars was starting to expand, it got to Mandalorian and Grogu and all that stuff. Like, one of the excitements of it was, oh, they can do a Monster in the House
Yep.
movie
Yeah.
with
Yep.
oh, they can do a heist movie.
Yep.
That's what Rogue One I thought was going to be. You know, it's a
Mhm.
heist movie in some ways, and it kind of is. But that was kind of the breaking out of Star Wars, and it worked to an extent. I think they kind of chickened out a little bit, like when they
They
got
didn't
to
keep going with
Solo.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Yes.
because they were going to do like the Boba Fett movie that got canned, trashed at the last second, and then the Solo movie they kind of chickened out a little bit too. I
A
think.
little bit, yeah. Even
Yeah.
though we love Solo on the
And
show,
I
then,
love Solo,
but
yeah.
so they
but
didn't expand it quite as much as I wish they would, but still the same idea. It's funny. I used to tell people I did a podcast one time, an interview with like an official Dungeons and Dragons podcast, and I kind of made this observation to him. I said, "Look, most of your D&D campaigns are golden fleeces. That's what they are.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
hunt the treasure." I said, "Why don't you try a Monster in the House? Why don't you
Yeah.
try an Out of the Bottle? And you all have to trade your character sheets. Like, you know, it's like all of a sudden everybody's a different character because you body switch. So
it
you're the same
shifts the
personality."
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, you should try these things. What's an institutionalized in D&D?
A
What's this?
predator body switch.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Alien and Predator body switch. I don't know.
I
But
also I just
yeah.
want to say, like, talking about this is like this people that will just note that this is different because it stars a predator, but this is the actual reason why this movie is different in this franchise, not just because it doesn't star a human.
yeah, it's
You know
the
what I
golden
mean? Like,
fleece approach. Yes.
I would say all the other Predator movies are more or less Monster in the House, with the exception of, well, no, even the animated movie is like 3 Monster in the Houses. So it's
Yeah.
all the same thing until now, and it's not just different because Deck is the lead.
Yeah. And I didn't put it on talking points, Jamie, but I'm gonna throw you an audible here. Do you think that this informs? So one thing that I thought this movie was a great example of that I didn't put on the talking points is your basic arcs that you've talked about in the past. And do you think that, which is the
3. Yeah.
the 3? What is it, Jamie?
Yeah. So I always have trouble remembering them. They get more confident, they care more, or they become a team player.
They learn
Those are-
learn to care.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
So this
3.
movie, and that's when we do Disney stuff and we do kids stuff, we always find that those are there always. They're the simplest, easiest to do, and you know, when you don't need the movie to be doing a lot of heavy lifting internally, that's an arc that works nicely, and I feel like this movie does all 3 of those, right?
Well, you could argue this is a Disney movie with decapitations.
It is.
It is.
I thought about
Yeah.
that while I was watching.
I actually heard some criticism that it's a standard Disney princess movie, you know, or something like that. I saw some criticism saying that.
So there, we just added a talking point. Bam, done.
Yeah, but I don't know how that's a criticism. Like a Disney princess movie where they cut people's heads off
Yeah.
and fight on a sci-fi planet. It sounds pretty awesome to me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, some people were like complaining that it wasn't violent enough somehow, like it was too PG-13 or something. I thought it was pretty violent.
Yeah.
There's 5 or 6 movies to watch that have that. And if you don't like this, you know what I mean? Like they made those.
Yeah.
Arguably one of the best movies ever made is the first one. So
exactly.
we've got that. Did you want to talk any more? You already mentioned it a bit, but did you want to talk more about the Upside Down world? Did you have anything?
Yeah, let me go into it a little bit because I think this is like a perfect example.
Right.
I've been in love with this one recently. This kind of new thing that for me I see movie after movie after movie, which is like it's basically this beat at the beginning of Act 2, like right when the story shifts into the standard like Upside Down world, which is like different than the characters before world. and we get like 5 to 7 minutes where it's not goal focused, where the character and the audience is just kind of like thrust into a completely different scenario and world, and we're kind of like learning as they learn what it's going to be like and how it's different than what we're used to and what they're used to. And you know, on the show recently we talked about The Substance. This is where she has her new body and she's just kind of like walking around reorienting herself in this young body, and she's not focused on any goals. And it's when in Elf, it's when Buddy comes to the city and he's not focused on his dad yet. He's just like, he tries to hug a real raccoon and gets attacked. He picks up the gum and eats it, and he's like, eh! You know, he's just kind of having fun in the city from 18 minutes to 22 minutes. And then he starts being focused on the goal. In The Matrix is when Neo first wakes up. In Groundhog Day, it's when Phil Connors is just kind of realizing he's reliving his first day and not trying to get out of that same day.
Day 3.
And yeah. Day, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in this one, it's specifically for anyone who wants to study it. At 17 minutes, it's when he crashes onto the planet, and for us, it is a true franchise. Welcome to the Upside Down world. This is the Death Planet, where the predator is now the prey, something we've never seen. He's literally being attacked by the jungle and can't handle himself. Like the killer vines, exploding caterpillars, plants with paralytic needles, razor blade glass, winged creatures that are bigger than him and can eat him. Everything on this planet is evolved to be a killer, and to be a killer that's like able to kill the predator, the character that we know as the ultimate predator. So the predator has now become the prey, and there's a good, it's 7 minutes. There's a good 7 minutes where he's just like escaping one threat after another, that reorients us. This is what this experience is going to be like. And I just think it's a great example of this Welcome to the Upside Down world, because why I like to point this out is I read a lot of scripts from newbies, and when Act 2 starts, it's 100% goal focused. So we get the character in an upside down world, and we don't get to have any of this reorientation. We don't get to have any of this, like,
there's no adjustment period.
There's no adjustment period. So like scene 1, right when Act 2 starts, they're right back to like, okay, I have a goal and I'm going to take action to get it. And I just think there's value in taking, like, it's when RoboCop's unleashed in the city for the first time. He's not dealing with like the, you know, the political mystery and all of that yet.
No.
So yeah, it's just, this is another example.
Yeah, you had to show that the predator was now bottom of the food chain, whereas on Earth,
that's a perfect way to put it. Yeah,
on Earth he's always at the top, you know, and it takes so
in
much
every movie. Yeah. So
he's the Callisk of Earth.
Exactly. Pretty much of every movie we've ever seen him in, you know. So I think this is a fantastic example, and it's premise specific. Like it's done in a way that really only works in the Predator franchise. So it's cool. It was one of my favorite things about it.
Very cool stuff. You have more to say?
No, that's it.
Oh, I thought you were saying something. Okay, let's talk about episodic.
Yeah, so the thing about the Golden Fleece, this is kind of tangential to that, is one danger of the Golden Fleece, and we've probably seen this in other Golden Fleeces we've done, is they tend to hit the fun and games and they can get episodic, meaning there can be scenes that just randomly happen because they walk to the next place. You know, it's the next spot in the journey. So it's kind of like there's a certain randomness to what's happening. It's not cause effect. There's a very popular, we've talked about before, South Park video that was out there. It's the writers of South Park, and they walk into a class and they talk about like the most important thing in the writer's room and the best thing they can teach you about writing or something like that. And they get up on a board and they say, when they outline, if their outlines say, and then, they know they're screwed because it's not cause effect. Instead, they need because of this, then this, or then therefore this.
It's therefore is what
therefore this. You know, you can. It's that cause effect that can come out. That can come out of it. So, with road trips, sometimes, you know, it's first we went to the biker bar, and then we got pulled over by the cop, And then I don't know what happens in a road trip. And then we
Encountered
got stuck in
a
traffic.
raccoon or
I'm
something.
immediately thinking Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And then we hitchhiked with Large Marge. Yeah. So things can get very
We've done
random.
Pee-wee too. We've done an episode. Yeah.
Things can get very random. And while that's not inherently a problem, and I'll explain how to keep things going, it's generally not advised, because this is the word I've been using lately, because I find a lot of scripts I work on consulting wise are this way. And I'm not even sure if I'm using this term right, but it's the word I've latched onto for this, that scripts aren't propulsive is the word, so they're not, they don't feel like they're what's the word, that they're flying off the same, they're going down the hill from the initial push. They feel like they keep getting pushed or something like that.
I call it spider webbing when it goes
spider webbing.
onto a new story web.
Branching.
And we have to find our way back to the original spider web.
And in the case of an episodic story, like there's the spider web, there is no original branch so much. There's the road in this case, and that is the original branch, but it can go off in any direction in the spider web. It's not like one scene then causes the next one, causes the next. And it can lead to viewers kind of checking out, because honestly, the beginning of this, and this is Trachtenberg, it feels like a video game, right? Mm-hmm. It feels like, and then they fight this monster, and then they have to deal with this, the razor grass,
the level bosses, basically.
They keep leveling up through a video game. Now, and my thing is, some stories, this is what I've kind of discovered recently. Like sometimes when I'm giving advice to writers on this, and a lot of my writers come up with episodic stuff. A lot of them, I see it a lot. Like it's maybe 40% of the scripts I'm seeing are episodic. So that's why I chose to talk about this today. But what I've also realized is maybe 10 or 15% of them have good reason to be episodic. It's just the type of story they're telling. So what I wanted to talk about today, because usually my advice is I send them the South Park video and I say, fix it, and some people like get stuck because that's just not their story. Their story is different. Sometimes that's a problem. Sometimes they need to come up with different hero goal obstacle stakes, the story DNA, to make it a story. Sometimes it's just like, and then he lives his life for the next 5 days and everything's random. But if you have one of these road trip stories, and it's just the nature of it, if you're telling a planes, trains, and automobiles, if you're telling a Little Miss Sunshine, if you're telling this, here are some tips. And these are kind of, this is a new listicle I've made.
Ooh.
Yeah, yep.
I'm ready.
Loves his lists.
Yeah, because
I got my pen.
That's right. Because I felt it was time for a new listicle. And this is something I've seen so much. I was like, when I saw this movie, I was like, this is the one. I can jot down my listicle I've been formulating. So here are some ways you can make the ticking clock. I'm sorry, the ticking clock's the first one. The road trip feel less like it's episodic. Number one's a ticking clock. Okay. So, and number two is tied to the ticking clock, especially the way Jimmy defines clocks in his stories. Now, so I'll give you 1 and 2 together. This one doesn't have a traditional ticking clock, but it has my second thing, which is villains on the hunt. There's some closing, something's closing in on the good guys. And maybe the good guys don't even know it, but it's closing and closing. I remember when we did, it's probably our least listened to episode of all time, Jumanji, whatever.
Yeah.
Welcome to the jungle. It's not our least listened to. It's not.
Okay.
Good Boys would be our least listened to.
Good Boys, one of my favorites. So in that movie, there really was episodic. It was just a video game, right? It was just go to this, go to this, go to this. But they did keep showing the villains. They even cut away to their POV, and they were like, we have to get them. We have to stop them at the pit. So we knew this collision was coming, and it becomes kind of a ticking clock because we know the bad guys are going to catch them eventually. There's only so much time before
even
that
if
happens.
only the audience knows it.
Even if only the audience knows it. And that's what this movie does. Yep. It has that ticking clock. I don't have this on there because I don't really know how to phrase it, but I think there's something to be said of the world building as well, that the ticking clock does in this movie that also makes everything more interesting. And I think John Wick does that to an extent too. It has just the mere fact that it has that world building does something. I'll have to figure out how that fits in, but the villain's on a hunt. It kind of fits that in.
Well, it's like the fascination of the exposition we're learning as like
I was
you
gonna say
expand the window.
Yeah,
the
that's right.
discovery kind of fills
The
in
discovery, there it
whole-
is. Discovery paint. Discovery paint. Boom.
Discovery paint. Sure. Yeah, that's it.
You know what's
That's what I
interesting
meant.
about the discovery, because it's the discovery, they do a trick that I talk about like in setups. The discovery is timed to events in the story.
Mhm.
So we don't meet the bad guys until we meet his buddy who's connected to the bad guy. So there is this kind of weird storytelling cause effect that's going
Yeah.
on, even if it's not plot cause effect. It's like, oh, okay, that triggers that. And now we're learning more and stuff like that. So there is a storytelling cause effect going on. Okay, number 3. This one, and I'm kind of building this new listicle. So A story, B story, cause effect. The A story has cause effect on the B story. So what happens is certain encounters cause things, trigger things in the B story to happen, even if the A story doesn't connect to the next A story scene. An A story triggers a B story reaction. So it's kind of like you have an A story action scene, and then you have the B story aftermath of the action scene. So there's a certain level of cause effect going on, A story, B story conversation.
And that creates that propulsion that you're talking
It
about.
does. It does. Because I think the B story takes over as the cause effect in some ways in these stories. It's like if you look at Little Miss Sunshine, they might go to different spots, but it's really the B story that's on a trajectory in some ways more than the A story. The A story is on its own trajectory. It's just kind of this simple straight line that has random events that happens. But the B story is more cause effect, I think, what happens. And I have a whole, I'll hold off for a second on B story because I have a whole thing to talk about with B story.
I love all this extra stuff. Hell yeah. I'm freaking taking notes over here.
There you go. So number 4, I think this one's really interesting. I call this one the false arrival. And it's usually a midpoint thing. Okay. And in this case, the arrival is killing the monster, right? But when the monster is killed or when captured or found or whatever, that's not the end of the story. We think that'll be the end, but instead that's just the middle. And that's what happens in this story. So there's usually a false arrival. It sets up this big quest. We follow the quest, we get there, and it fakes us out. It's a false victory of sorts. So it's typical, midpoint false victory. And I think this one does a good version of that. That when they finally get to the monster, that's just the beginning. Now we're going to twist.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a thematic monster.
Exactly. And it sets up a whole new goal and things like, because now the goal is less about killing the monster. It's more about escaping the ship and what's going to happen next and things like that. And I think that's what happens in this movie. The goal kind of shifts.
This monster can only be killed by the B story, not the A story.
That's perfect.
Right?
I love it. Yes. Thematic.
The next one I have, and honestly, these aren't really in order of how cool they are, because this is the most obvious one, is escalating scale or escalating tension, right? So each event should escalate in scale. So even though that it's not cause effect, it feels like it's getting more and more dangerous with each step we go. If I had time to go back and watch, I probably could have figured this one out more. But I think repeating motifs is probably another big thing to help episodic, because you can, and I can't think of one, like what specific one there would be in this movie, but it's almost like if you can come back and echo motifs, it feels like there's a cause effect journey going on in your motifs.
Well,
it feels like
he kind of uses everything from his journey.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
to basically
Physical
win the
and
B story.
spiritual. It's physical stuff
Physical
and
and spiritual, right?
stuff. Yes,
Uses the grass,
we're
those little
revisiting
spitters.
we're revisiting relationships, we're revisiting things, we're revisiting thematic lessons. Yeah, with the wolf
It's
and
like
the
a little like Slumdog Millionaire of this planet. Like he uses all the things he learned on the way
yeah.
to
Right.
win the prize,
Yep.
you know?
And then the last one, and again, I didn't make these in order of interest or something, but um, geography as progress. I think there's a changing geography in these things. I think sometimes, in this case, it could be the hunting aspects of it. Like we're getting closer because this is where his,
No, you're getting it builds to the Weyland-Yutani base, and then
exactly.
it comes back
It-
to the home world where he's got to confront his father. So yes, I feel
And
that.
If you were in, like, let's say you were in a standard dragon slaying movie, you could imagine it starts in the snow, it goes through the city, but then you get in the mountains, and then you go in the cave, and then you end up in the lair, and it's just this.
Yeah,
There's a certain thing of geography that
I think
changes
you
with
could
the
track
show.
that very well with this
Very
movie.
well.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when the wreckage, the Weyland-Yutani wreckage, and he asks if it's the Kalisk's nest.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and that's where she finds her legs, and that's where she reveals the twist to him. It's not a twist to us, but it's a twist to him. So yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the ones I kept to battle the episodicness. And for me, I think the biggest one, I think the most important one is the B story. I think that's battles. If you focus on the B story and the random events are affecting the B story, I think that's the best one. So I wanted to talk a little bit about B story. And B story is one of the things that when I teach classes and stuff, I get the most questions about, because in Save the Cat, I don't know, there might be other books. Maybe I should investigate some other books on B story and things like that. In Save the Cat, he kind of tells you what a B story is and then just kind of leaves it up to you. He's like, oh yeah, it's the story, it's the love story, it's thematic, it's sometimes the midpoint, A and B story cross, teaches that they go for it, and that's kind of all he gives. So a lot of people get stuck on that. They're like, and a lot of people get so stuck that they come to me. I've heard this question many times, and they say, do I have to have a B story? Or they might say, what I used to see a lot, and this I correct a lot. A lot of times people say, oh, the B story is the bad guys. It's the androids that are chasing them. That's the B story. And I'm like, that's not the B story. That's not the B story.
Right.
So this is something new I came up with too. This is a new litmus test that I
this has been the most fertile of suggestions of movies.
Yes.
For Jamie.
There you go. So I was thinking about the B story. I was thinking about some clients I had that wanted to skip the B story. And then I also thought people who had the wrong B story, had the androids or something like that, And I said, here's my litmus test. If you can take the B story out of your movie and your character still arcs, you don't have the right B story. That's my new test. This is my new. That's my new piece.
Are they consequential? Are they consequential?
Or are you just tacking it on because Blake Snyder told you needed a B story, and you're like,
B arc test.
And if it doesn't arc the character, then you just have a side character. You're adding a side character. Right. You're not adding a B story. So that was my new test.
Now, Jamie, how does this play? Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, just for people listening, specifically say what the B story is and how it's affecting in this movie, just for anyone listening.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm gonna go into that next. But Jimmy,
okay, all right.
Jimmy, what's your question?
My question is, on that note, with the litmus test, how does that go with the litmus test with Arc of Awesome?
The Arc of Awesome. Oh, that's a good point. I'd have to think about that a little bit because let's explain what Arc of Awesome is.
Yeah, you gotta define it.
So Arc of Awesome or a flat arc, which are very similar, are when a character is so basically it's a character that doesn't arc because they're awesome, They don't really have a flaw. They're thinking about things in the right way.
Superman.
And they change the world as opposed to the world changing them. And they change the world. The world tries to beat them down. They try to change their mind. It tries to say, you're wrong. You should think about it. And they stick with it. They follow through. They don't change. And through doing so, they change the world.
Yes.
Now, just asking me in general, how do B stories work in the Arc of Awesome? I'd have to do some thinking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like a shitty Reddit commenter's question. What about an Arc of Awesome?
Yeah. And because on one hand, I think of Superman, and I think there's probably a Lois Lane Arc of Awesome.
What is the Lois Lane?
But she probably just supports him staying the same in some ways, as opposed to changing, and somehow feeds that.
Pa Kent.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
But on the flip side, like if we take Marty from Back to the Future, I think it's the same thing, because the B story is his dad, and his dad changes, and if his dad wasn't there, he wouldn't change, and therefore you wouldn't have an arc. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's But I'm not sure if that holds for all Arc of Awesomes. Like, I'd have to really.
It just immediately was like, that's a good litmus test. What about Arc of Awesome?
Yeah, it's funny when I have clients come to me with an Arc of Awesome, and it's very rare I have clients come to me with an Arc of Awesome. I usually, honestly, maybe never have they come to me with an Arc of Awesome. Instead, they come to me with no arc. That's usually what happens.
That's different.
It's not intended.
It's not the same. Yeah. They just left the arc out. They didn't think about it. They didn't have a theme. They're writing a slasher movie where everybody dies and there's no real change or something. I don't do as much consulting as you do, Jimmy. Like, over the years, like I might do 40 a year or something like that, tops. I can't think of any time somebody came to me and I said, "Wow, this is an Arc of Awesome." Maybe once. Have you had that experience?
Never.
Yeah.
Or I'm almost 450 in, and I've never had an Arc of Awesome sent to me.
I think it's a very advanced kind of concept that takes a very confident writer to do.
As a Superman fan, and spending the last 10 years on the internet talking about Superman, people do not understand this concept. I can tell you that.
That's part of it.
And they and most normal people assume that no arc is bad writing, straight up, without question. It doesn't matter about all the other specifics you guys are talking about. If the person does an arc, it's bad. That's what they assume.
Yeah.
And people who don't like Superman, it's because they don't understand what you're explaining there. They don't understand that that's the point that he.
That's the actual point of the character.
Yes, that's the point.
Yeah. And also, to mitigate confusion, we're not saying Deck is on an arc also.
No.
No, absolutely not.
Back to
I don't want to confuse anyone.
I'm sorry, I confused.
No,
I just need to say it to make sure they know that we're not saying that.
But it is interesting that I may have never seen one in all my consulting, which is probably only a few hundred scripts deep, tops. But I don't think I've ever seen one, and you've never seen one. Yeah. So it kind of tells you, if you're in that territory, you're probably just missing an arc or something like that. Probably. So let's get back to Deck's arc. So Deck has a great arc, because here's the way you really look at arcs. First of all, what's a character's arc? Look at them at the beginning of the movie and look at them in the very last scene and where they are. Are they different?
You once said, Jamie, would they make the same decisions they made earlier in the movie?
One. Yes. Yeah. Would they? And I'd say he probably wouldn't even come close to making the same decision.
Exactly. Yes. In every way, shape, and form.
And then, so, if we just kind of look at it, in the beginning, he's totally driven on doing his father's bidding, impressing his father. He's the kid who was ignored, kind of thing. And he's willing to die to impress his father. In the end, he kills his father.
Yeah, he kills him.
So it's completely an opposite. That it's a huge arc. But here's the question. Would he be that person? And maybe to an extent he would. But would he be that person if he never met Thea?
No.
So there you go.
No.
That's the B story. Is B story Thea, and he met her. Now, the next big question I get, like I think I already introduced this, but went off in the Arc of Awesome, is again, Blake Snyder never talks about B Story. So I came up, this is old. I think I've done this on the show before. So I don't think, maybe once. This is my B Story beats. I came up with a series of sub beats for B Stories.
10 things I hate about you. That's the only time you've done it.
10 things I hate about you. So I did it for this.
Bam.
I did it for this. Okay.
I don't know how I know that, but I do.
That's great. That's great. I knew I did it at least once. So number one, so these are the beats, and I'm not saying you have to have these beats. I'm just saying if you're one of those people that's about to call me or Jimmy up and say, what do I do for the B Story? I don't get it. Like, how do I do it? I came up with a series of beats that kind of float around. I'm not going to get into where they fall in the Save the Cat world too much. Like this one goes next to the midpoint. Just know they kind of float between fun and games and finale. Okay. So number one, the meet cute. And the B Story, just for this purpose, is the Thea and Deck relationship story.
Mhm.
It's a brother-sister story, in my opinion. That's what it is, right? It's two people learning to be a brother and sister.
They're a found family. That's what it builds to. So that makes sense.
And it's usually a love story. It's usually a relationship story. It could be a mentor, boy and their dog, two friends, two people that hate each other that become friends. It's usually some kind of relationship story. Meet cute. So their meet cute is during an action scene, right? So she has no legs, she needs help, he needs help, they kind of help each other, they meet cute, right? Or cute meet. I don't know if it's cute meet or meet cute.
It's meet cute. It's meet cute.
There was somebody that corrected me on that one time. They were like, it's cute meat. And I'm like,
no,
it sounds gross.
Go watch the movie The Holiday. It's right there.
Sounds like something out of a weird Outback Steakhouse.
You do it wrong forever.
Cute meat. What?
Cute meat. Yeah, somebody corrected me with that, and I was like, "What? Cute meat?
Yeah,
what?
no,
never heard of that." So a meet cute, and the cute meat is just weird. So anyway, that's
like
the
cut a
first
steak.
Yeah,
exactly.
It sounds gross.
Yeah, something in the back of the butcher shop.
Sounds like a compliment.
And
cute
it would be
meat,
like,
bro.
And it would be something really gross that they said
right.
like Oregon meat or something. And it'd be something British people would say. I'm sorry if you're British. So the second section is the love and games. And the love and games is in the fun and games section. And this is however you define the relationship. So in buddy stories, people are either stuck together or forced apart. Like it's either usually two people that really want to be together but are forced apart through something, or people that kind of are complete opposites but stuck together, right?
Midnight Run
or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And in this case, like he's damaged. I'm sorry, she's damaged. She's emotionally evolving. Like she's kind of the person, or the robot that kind of has this evolving emotional core. He's arrogant. He's kind of isolated. He's kind of like Dax the Destroyer in some ways. He's
very much like
shuts off his feelings.
It's not a complaint at all.
Not at all. Not at all. He's obsessed with proving his strength, and she's more interested almost in the vulnerable side of people or something, the emotional side. So they're complete opposites, but they're stuck together. And they'll, so they sort of form a bond in that way. So anyway, the love and games is that in action. It's the two getting on each other's nerves or rubbing each other the wrong way or things like that. Usually there's I'm not saying how many scenes there are, but usually there's a sprinkling of scenes like that in the fun and games. There's a sprinkling of using
this definitely has that.
Yes. Yeah. The third beat is the intimate moment beat, right? It's usually confessional. People kind of express a layer of vulnerability. They let down their armor for a brief second and they say something.
Usually around a campfire.
Or usually around a campfire. It could almost be called a campfire scene.
Yeah.
Because it happens so often there. And that happens here for sure. There's that emotional moment where they kind of talk about brothers and sisters and their own kind of hang-ups and vulnerabilities and things like that. And it works really well. It's a campfire scene. So anyway, that's the third beat that commonly happens. After that beat, I think the heroes are a little stirred. Once they show their vulnerabilities, both sides start to feel closer to the other person in the relationship. The stakes raise, right? So then the internal bad guys close in. So
Awesome.
they start to feel for the other person, and that confuses the mission. That confuses the A story just a little bit. So while the external bad guys are closing in, the internal bad guys. So it's this weird thing where Thea probably should be happy that the external bad guys are closing in, but instead there's mixed feelings, and you can feel
Right.
it. We can feel it in the movie. And then there's the we almost had it all moment, which I always think, like, they almost get to the point where they're both going to be together. I don't know that this movie so much has it, but when they're actually attacking the monster, like externally, they almost have it all and they're going to do it together. But then there's the big breakup.
Jamie,
And
I think this definitely has it when she's putting her legs back together.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're totally in sync and they're going to get the callus together.
It's like a
She's like,
metaphor
"Oh, by
that she
the-
loses her
yeah.
legs right there.
So
Yeah.
I totally agree that
We almost had it all, and then
and then you get ripped apart again. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there's
That's
two
so good, Bob.
there's two sides to the almost had it all. One is the external side, and usually it's there. And then there's the relationship side. So that's often in a love story, that's almost like when they're peak in love, but it's
Yeah.
right before they find out, oh, it was all a trick. Heath Ledger was in on a bet. You know what I mean? Like it's that
Yeah.
part that becomes,
Which is exactly that moment.
yes. And so the big breakup is the next one. These stories always have a big breakup. They always kind of get reminded of, oh, I should have never let my guard down. You know, I should have never listened to you. What was I thinking? And that happens in this as well, when it's kind of like the Heath Ledger bet. We realize why she was there, what her plan was all along, and maybe she wasn't so vulnerable. Maybe it was all a trick, and he kind of feels like a loser for letting anyone in, because he's so arrogant and whatever
Others are tools, not
exactly.
It's like a confirmation of fear of what
Exactly.
you always feared. Yeah.
of his false teachings. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
His false programming. Yep.
So last but not least comes the race to the airport. Okay. And this one has the rescue is kind of the race to the airport, right?
Yes.
And it works great. You know, it shows you how even a movie like this has these romance beats in it, these rom-com beats. They have the 7
Every one
rom-com.
of those tracks, Jamie.
It does.
Everyone.
It does. When I was watching, I was just like, oh, this is totally going to be a good example of this. So it's, if you're like a lot of my clients and you're like, okay, what's this B story? I got this character and stuff. Maybe you can take a few minutes, map out on the side what these 7 beats are, and try them out, and then you kind of blend them into your story and see where they fit. But I think, especially in an episodic story, if you can mix in this, you have enough going on that there's that propulsion, that the things moving forward. Because even if the story feels a little bit video gamey, the emotion, the relationship story will have these other beats that kind of are cause effect.
So yeah, when you're writing your monster movie, remember 10 things I hate about you.
10 things I hate about you.
That's it. Just sneak a 10 things I hate about you in there.
Yeah. I would have never thought that B story
would track like that.
Those love story beats would track, and they so do. That's great.
Yeah, and I really think that's the key with the B story is imagine this movie without the B story. And that's what I get when
It'd be a short film.
Well, when people send me these stories, that's what I get. It's hard to explain to them what's missing sometimes.
Yeah.
And I do. It usually takes a zoom, and sometimes I don't think they buy what I'm saying. They're like, well, why can't it just be action? And we just, first he gets in this fight scene, and then the next fight scene, and then the next fight scene, and then he kills the monster in the end. And it's just like, I guess it could be that, but what movie there probably is a movie that did that was good, but it's hard. It's just kind of cold. It leaves you cold. It's kind of, No, it's just there's
I feel
nothing
like
to it.
you remove that from this, and it's nothing more than like a 20-minute fan film.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not insulting the movie, because it would just be a beautiful look. We can do a Predator story fan film with him just killing a monster for his dad, and then it's
I
you're removing the point.
I think a lot of new writers though do get stuck on writing that movie you just described, and they often come out at like 60 pages, and they're like, I don't know how to make it longer, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Right.
because you're missing half the movie. You took the soul out, and that was 40 minutes. So
Right.
you need to find a soul and add 40 minutes.
If you take Thea out of this movie, I don't even know what you would be thinking that he would be learning. It's
Well,
it's I don't know what is Deck even as a character. Then
I tell you what they'd say. They'd say, "Oh, it's a flat arc."
Yeah.
Or
He's so awesome. He doesn't need to meet anyone.
Or the question I get a lot, they'd say, "What's the arc in Die Hard?" And then I explain to them for 15 minutes what the arc in Die Hard is. They go, I guess.
That's an amazing segue for the next
window characters, right?
For window characters. So everything that Jamie just talked about is sort of like just setting up for the next 3 topics, which are mine, which you guys are welcome to chime in.
Sure.
Because they're sort of just building off of everything he just talked about with the B story. So I thought this movie was a great example of window characters, which is sort of another codification of what Jamie is explaining there. So what is a window character? So there are someone who the main character talks to that when they're battling inner turmoil, that allows the audience a window into their emotional status and how they're feeling about various things, how they're feeling about the theme, how they're feeling about the progress of their goals, whether they're growing or whether they're regressing, and they challenge them. They dig for emotional answers. They give us insights that we couldn't get otherwise by just watching the dude run around or the woman run around. Someone they confide in, or they try not to confide in, but they're forced to by the character who won't shut up, and this allows like us to understand the character's like trajectory. And it doesn't always have to be a friend either. It could totally be a foe. Like you could have the villain forcing them to emote about these things. So some famous examples that we've done on the show, Al in Die Hard is one of the best window characters ever. Mm-hmm. And Jamie, when you were doing that, I was going like, I bet you the B story beats that you just described, if we broke down Die Hard, Al and John, you would have it would hit all of those beats.
The one I'm not sure about, like when I think about that one, is the breakup. Do they break up at times?
There's a forced breakup where
it's
they're
not,
like
it's not
disconnected. Like the FBI shows up and it's like what you're describing, like we almost had it all.
They're torn apart.
They're torn apart. So they
and Al's job is threatened, sort of.
Yeah. I was going to say, it feels like Al failed him.
It's like emotionally, it hits what you're describing emotionally. It might not be exactly the same, but emotionally, it functions the exact same.
I'm more asking the question to think about, like, as I evolve this little beat sheet that I'm doing, like what to incorporate. But I think
maybe it's just the breakup, which looks very different in every premise. And then when you have some other examples that we've talked about in the past, when you have a protagonist of few words, which is like vengeance stories and this one, then you have to really find a way to organically make them talk. And for instance, we did in The Killer, the Netflix movie, his voiceover is the window character. That's how you're gaining insight into his emotional state, because on the surface, in the Hayes story, he's not talking to anyone about this, but we get to hear how he feels through his voiceover. So there's no one size fits all. And my favorite window character is Wilson in Castaway. When you don't have another person for them to talk to, you need to create a way for them to still be talking about their emotions and their goals and their themes. And Wilson is a perfect example of that, right? When you don't have a person, you have to have some other thing. Right. And then in The Substance, we did the unconventional, which is like she's just getting a call from like a random cold voice who doesn't give a shit about her. That's like, do you want to continue the experience?
Right.
And that's how we get her to go be like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? What are you doing to me? You know, like, and without that, we wouldn't be able to understand what she's going through and how she feels specifically. So one thing that stuck out to me is like, this is a great example, like John Wick, like the Western stories. He's a character of few words that, like, if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be talking, especially since he speaks an alien language.
Right. It's even heavier in this movie.
Right. So they had to do the work to figure out, okay, like, what do we have to do? We have to give him a character that's just going to force him to talk about his feelings, right? And she's a perfect example. And what they did that was cool with Bud, the baby, how do you pronounce the name of the monster, Bob?
Bailisk.
Callus.
Okay. Sorry, I'm thinking of something else.
Asen?
The child Callus is also the child Callus is also another window character, because like we're seeing Deck bond with that, like reluctantly bond with that character, and the mirroring and his emotional response to that character trying to like warm up to him is another version
of that. Also the signifier of his full arc.
Exactly. It's showing us
progress. Yeah.
Right. If it weren't for Bud, if it weren't for that character,
right,
we wouldn't be able to see and feel that progress. And so that's like the function of a window character, right? Or a window thing that you personify, right? Like Wilson, the soccer ball. So
yeah, if you want to understand Deck, I mean, watch any Clint Eastwood movie, I would say, like how those movies use window characters, because Clint Eastwood notoriously doesn't talk much in his movies until another character forces it out of him, right?
Yes. So this is a great example, and I mean, usually they are the B story, but not always, right?
Right.
So, but I do wonder if if Jamie's B story beats Track with Wilson in Castaway, because they do have the breakup, right? The ball floats into the ocean.
Yeah.
No, Wilson.
They might not have a meat cute as much. I don't know what they're
I don't
and like
know.
Wilson, you know, like when they wrote that movie, like Wilson was the survivalist on that movie said he needed a voice instead of talking to the voice in his head or to God. They decided on Wilson, the volleyball, because that was thrown around too. He would start talking to God or just start generally talking to himself, but they chose that instead, which is great.
Love it. It's so
it proves you can make your own Wilson with anything.
Yes. So this is just a great example of like how to use a window character well. So
yeah,
it's simple, easy.
Society is the villain.
Okay, so this is the one thing that stuck out to me in my quick view an hour before we recorded is there's actually two societies in this story, and they're both villains. And we sort of, like Jamie talked about, that discovery of when we meet Tessa, which I think is like 35 minutes in. That's when we start to be opened up to this other villain and this other society that's equally wrong, and both of them are exploring the same theme and character growth. So I'll give you, first of all, let me explain like what this is for anyone who hasn't heard the show before. Basically, if you have a story where society is the villain, you have to then personify the many faces of the societal ill. So this is basically like when society is the villain, it's like the anti-theme, right, Jamie? Like, what's the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? Is like Nurse Ratched, right?
Nurse Ratched, yeah.
Nurse Ratched. So we've done on the show, we've done Fury Road. This is a Morton Joe and the face of the barbarian warmongering dictatorship patriarchy, right? Mayor Larry Vaughn in Jaws is the face of profits over people, pleasure over safety. All of the antagonists in A League of Their Own are the many faces of misogyny and placing limitations on women based on their gender. In Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, we saw that every fucking character in that story is a total asshole who's obsessed with societal conformity.
Rudolph comes up so often. It's amazing.
It tells you why it stands the test of time. So I wanted to talk about real quick, and if I messed up these details, correct me, because like I said, I didn't have a lot of time this one. Society 1 is that, how do you say the name of the alien species?
Yautja.
Yucha?
Yautja.
Yautja.
Aeson.
Their warrior culture, the societal ill is toxic strength worship, right? Your worth is determined by violence, weakness deserves death, right? That is the wrong way programming, the societal ill that Deck needs to unlearn in order to achieve the goal by story's end, right?
Right.
And like his father is, the memory of his father is reminding him of that. You know, he flashes back to that. And every bullshit mantra he's spouting from that culture is about that, you know, like, we work alone, and, you know, and his brother was defiant of that, therefore teaching him, you know, that, you know, the very thing he lost, the reason that he lost it is because his brother wasn't ultimately, you know, religious.
His brother went against it. Thus,
his brother went against it.
That was the crack in the armor.
Yes.
To lead us into this.
And he didn't understand what his brother was trying to teach him in that moment.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not until we meet another character who's entrenched in another society, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which once we meet Tessa and we start learning about their society, we learn that they reduce beings to tools, right? And they explore all of that through the dialogue between Thea and, you know, he's like, you're a tool, you know, for me, you're not a person, you're a tool. And eventually he learns that that's bullshit, you know, like that he cares about her. So,
he can't work with anyone. He can only use
them. And that's the way that Weyland-Yutani feels about everything too.
Right.
Including Tessa and Thea. Right. And so, so, you know, they're the many faces.
Or the way Mother feels about them.
And the way Mother feels, right? So these two collide, and both ills are kind of like the same thematic. They're circling around the same thematic lesson, which is like, you're only worth like what you can do, right? You're only worth what you can kill or what you can produce, right? And then the alpha wolf thing, that lesson is proving that wrong, right? But it's basically like you're worth like how you can like nurture and protect, which is the opposite of like, you know, killing and making. So it's just interesting.
How much you can enrich your society versus dominate it.
Exactly. And that's what the alpha wolf thing is doing, right? It's like, and that's what he ultimately embraces, and he can only learn to embrace that through his relationship with Thea, who's trying to teach him that, you know. So it's cool that this has, I don't know that we've ever done a movie that had two societies and two ills. So that stuck out to me as another thing they really meant. For as simple as this movie is, that's pretty complex, and I feel like it works, and you feel it. Like I felt it, so it was just cool.
It's good. Well, no, it's two societies. It's also like kind of impressive that it's two societies that are not, I don't know, ours fully. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not of our time or Earth or anything.
It's interesting because it's two societies that are both toxic.
Yes.
That are heroes, both of our heroes in the buddy comedy or example, or the buddy love example, are trying to live up to. You know, and they both discover that they don't like those societies and make their own society together.
Yeah, it's almost like Thea had the Alpha Wolf story, but she didn't understand it, and then her journey with Deck teaches her that, like, that's why that story is so great, and he learns to understand it and become the Alpha Wolf. So it's cool.
It's kind of you can overcome your programming story.
Yes, for both of them. Yeah, and her being an android, that's literal.
Yep.
Yeah, right. It's totally literal. They're both just running from their mother. Literally, because one's called Mother, and then at the end, you watch after.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Praise of the Killer speeches. We haven't talked about for a while, but
No, and in fact, we've only talked about it like 6 times ever in 147 episodes, but it's such a memorable technique that it feels
right.
like we've talked about it a ton.
Our most
And the
popular
examples.
episode is Jaws. So
Oh, well,
yeah, it's yeah.
That's an entire page long Praise of the Killer speech.
Right,
So
exactly.
this is something I learned in the 90s. When I went to a Robert McKee.
Just kidding.
God, yes, 26 years ago, 27 years ago, when I went in 1999, when I went to a Robert McKee horror specific horror writing seminar in New York City. And this isn't something that he created, but it's a code that he coined that I think is amazing, which is it's characters basically giving vocalized gravitas to your villain that makes us feel fear about them. It's like, they're the hype man or hype woman for the monster. And we've tracked this in comedies. It works in comedies, so it can work for like a comedic antagonist. It doesn't necessarily have to be a literal monster, but it helps the character in the audience take the monster or the villain more seriously. So like some of the most famous examples are Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers. Like, I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left, He had the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, I spent 8 years trying to reach him, then another 7 trying to keep him locked up. And it's the Kyle Reese Terminator speech to Sarah Connor. Like, he doesn't feel pain. Like, he's out there. He can't be bargained with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or feel, and it will not stop until you're dead. It's the Quint Indianapolis scene. It's Alien talking to Ash, and Ash saying that the creature is, the perfect organism. It's the perfect killer. So what I thought was cool about this, and I tacked this on in the end, so if this doesn't work, like, tell me. But I think that this is using that technique, that like Dan Trachtenberg and Asen, they know what this is.
Yeah.
They know
that
they know that a Predator movie, and I'm sure there's one in Predator, right?
Yeah.
If we tracked it, they know that a Predator movie typically is a monster in the house, and it demands this Praise of the Killer speech. And because of the unique ingredients to this story and the golden fleece, and that it's going to be a subversion of all of that, they subvert the recipe. And when Thea tells him, I wasn't able to find the exact words, but she says, on Earth, there's a predator known as a wolf. And Thea tells Deck that the true alpha of a wolf pack isn't the toughest or the meanest or the most violent or the best killer. It's the one who does the best job protecting their family, protecting their pack. It's the one who nurtures. It's the one who's responsible. And I think it functions like a praise of the killer, but it's like a praise of the non-killer, and that ultimately, the gravitas the story gives that, it teaches him the theme, right? It teaches him the new definition of what strength looks like. And
it
he
also
takes that.
It invalidates the father at the same time.
Yes, it's opposing it's opposing the killer that we would normally hear praised in these movies, right?
Yeah.
Like and if it weren't for that speech and that story, I don't think that Deck's character would have something to hold on to and conceptualize and learn from, So I think it's a really cool subversion that it's like it's like a thematic antithesis of a Praise of the Killer speech. It stuck out to me, and it's cool. I think it's cool. Am I wrong?
No. She almost gives him a new, like he's very like Yauch's obviously are very regimented in their beliefs, and they need structure. However simple it is. So she gave him this new structure, almost
like a new campfire.
A new campfire story to follow.
Like a new, like a new hero to aspire to, right?
Yeah.
Instead of a monster to fear. Yeah. So
yeah,
it was cool.
There's there's this technique that I like to throw in each one of my scripts because it's not something I usually do on first draft, but I'd like to do it on the second draft. And it's here's an example. This is almost an example of it. And I haven't codified it yet. I think it's like story once upon a time, I call it, is what I usually call it.
Okay.
And what it is, if you have a piece of on the nose dialogue that speaks the theme, is there a version where you can tell a story, a once upon a time? And it's something I kind of picked up because if you ever watch Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass, if you ever watch that
Love
series, every episode has dozens of these. Like they're just
Yeah.
like, let me tell you a story. And they go off in these long stories.
Yeah.
And it's almost how they do dialogue. Now, he might do it a little too much in some ways at times. He might do it like several times an episode. But when I watched it, I was like, I love these. I want to do these. And I
Yeah.
started to, I usually do a pass in my second draft where I identify on the nose things. And I usually target one of those on the nose things to have the right character who makes sense to give a metaphoric once upon a time. And that sounds like what this is.
That's what this is.
Yeah,
Yes,
this is what this
yes.
is. There's probably even a praise of the killer speech, a real one in here about the monster.
The callus. There is. It's very short. There's two of them. There's one from the brother, because I almost put them in.
Yep.
There's one from the brother when they're looking at the map, that talks about, even father fears this, and there's one from her when he meets her, but they're so short that they don't really like hold the weight like the Loomis and the Kyle Reese and the Ash about the aliens. I didn't bring them. Bring them in, but they do. The story does do that. Yes.
The fun thing as a writer with the once upon a time thing is it allows you to bring something in, about like some piece of trivial knowledge or something. Now, sometimes they tell them about themselves. So sometimes it's pure piece of fiction. Like it's a character, like when I was a kid, my mom used to always take me to the Enchanted Forest or something, whatever. And then they tell some thematic story. But then other times it can be like this, there it's like talking about the wolf or something like that.
Yeah. It's just cool. It was interesting, and it works really well. Like it's almost like a thematic not so secret weapon, because it's like what he uses to conjure that. It's what he uses. It's like the magic emotional potion that he uses to change, right? Like he's like, I'm gonna be the alpha. I'm gonna be the protector.
It's kind of the only way you could have gotten him to change, by telling him, by doing this, you can also be on top. You can also be the best there is.
Yes. You could be the best protector. You could be the best,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of times, like the way you would write that in a first draft would be them saying that like
directly on the nose. And then tone it down.
They would literally say, your father isn't really a father. That's not what a father does.
Yes.
A father is someone who does this and that. And
which is the subtext of everything you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Of everything they're saying. Yeah. So
it could be a cool,
I like that, Jamie.
Yeah. It can be a cool technique. If you find an on the nose piece of dialogue, it can be a trigger for you, or an invitation, let's say, to find a metaphoric story from your real life or from the character's real life. Yeah.
Very good. Well, that brings us to the end of our outline, guys. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, or do you just want to plug some stuff?
I'll go ahead and plug the questions episode, which we haven't decided when that's going to be. We've gotten a good half dozen new questions come in since the last episodes. Thank you for those. You can email me at writersblockbusterspodcast@gmail.com. writersblockbusterspodcast@gmail.com. And we're going to do an episode that's just answering listeners' questions.
I feel like you have 2 episodes to get that in. We're at 147. I feel like 149 is the right answer for that.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah, right before 150.
And maybe that means, but we should social media publicize that too, just to hit whatever,
I like that.
We'll get a couple extra questions at the last minute. But Yeah, and like Bob always says, feel free to ask us any questions. I'm sure the bulk of them will be screenwriting questions, movie questions, but anything tangentially related to movies and things like that, feel free to be creative for that.
Yeah, even though the opening of our show might give you the wrong impression, like we never get a chance to just like relaxingly talk about
Hang
movies.
out.
We're always like on a clock about talking about them and stuff, and it's just like we never just like essentially hang out and talk about movies would be cool for a moment on a questions episode.
Yes.
I know we created our own show that has its own theme, but you know what I'm saying.
I will
This is the
tease
one
that we
excuse.
got a couple questions that are priming Jamie and Bob for lists. So Jamie's gonna
good.
love them.
All right, perfect.
That's what we want, is to just get us to make lists. That's all we ever want, to be a BuzzFeed. I think that's everything, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, this is Bob Rose, and thank you for listening to Writers Blockbusters. If you'd like to financially support the show, please consider joining my Patreon. I've been producing the podcast for several years completely out of pocket, and I'd like to keep producing it ad-free and no longer at a loss. If you'd like to help, head on over to patreon.com/Bob Rose Sucks. That's right, Bob Rose Sucks. And if you want the one and only Jimmy George to help polish up that writing project you're kind of struggling with, head on over to scriptbutcher.com. As a listener, you already know he's the best there is, scriptbutcher.com. You can also support the show by simply sharing it or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate both. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.